Hello and welcome to the Farming Week, the podcast from Agriland that keeps you up to date with all the latest in Irish agriculture. I'm Charles O'Donnell and I'm joined by journalist Aisling O'Brien. After no shortage of uncertainty in recent weeks, participants in the Agri-Climate Rural Environment Scheme received some good news in the last week, with Minister Charlie McConalogue announcing that an interim payment will be made to participants who are awaiting payment under the scheme. And just yesterday evening, which was Wednesday evening, the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine provided further details on the rates of payment. What has the department said on that, Aisling?
Yeah, so this is going to come as a big relief to Acres participants out there, Charles, because last Friday, as you said, February 9th, Minister Charlie McConalogue announced that the Department of Agriculture would be making an interim payment to participants in Tranche 1 of Acres who have not yet received their advance payments. Now, the advance payments for general participants in the Agri-Environmental Scheme began in December, and at that time we did learn as well that there would be a delay in payments for farmers in the cooperation stream of the scheme. Now, the minister said that work is continuing in the department on the processing of further general advance payments, and it is a priority, but it is likely to take a further period of time to complete. So on the back of that, and against severe criticism about those delays from farmers, farm organisations and politicians, along with thousands of farmers taking to the streets in recent weeks to vent their frustration about payment delays, the minister said that this interim nationally funded payment would be made to farmers affected across Acres General and Cooperation. Then, as you said yesterday, on Wednesday, we did get more detail about what those payments would look like. So the department has told us that the interim payment will be €4,000 for farmers in the general stream and €5,000 for those in the cooperation stream. So Minister Charlie McConalogue said it was his intention to have this interim payment delivered to the farmers affected by the end of this month. And he added that the Acres payments will take into account these interim payments already made to participants, and those payments will issue in June for Acres Tranche 1 participants. So he added that in the intervening period, officials from the department would continue with the payment process as a key priority. And he said he very much appreciated the importance of this payment to farmers, and he was fully committed to rewarding farmers for their environmental ambition. And he said intensive work will continue on the calculation of the full payments due to farmers under Acres. And when this work is completed, the final payments issued to farmers will take into account the interim payments, as we said there already. Now, so the way that this has been handled by the department has obviously come in for criticism, as I said, Charles, and the Irish Cattle and Sheep Farmers Association President Sean McNamara said that this whole debacle had been a shambles that must never again happen. Now, he did welcome the interim payments, but he said that the department still has questions to answer here. And he said it wasn't good enough to leave so many farmers in the dark about important payments, particularly those who are in the low income brackets, perhaps across beef, suckler and sheep sectors, and they are particularly hard pressed when it comes to delayed payments as well. So look, welcoming the interim payment, the ICSA president, but obviously saying that questions need to be answered by the department about these delays.
Yeah, I suppose, Aisling, not to be overly critical or anything, but I suppose it might be fair to say the department hasn't covered itself in glory here, because even on last week's podcast we kind of alluded to the fact that there seems to be some issues at the moment in processing payments. And as you mentioned there, the official or formal Acres payments will be due in June, which will be the interim payments obviously will be made at the end of this month, as the minister said. The formal Acres payments then issuing in June, but of course it was expected that those payments would issue this month, and now the minister has had to introduce this interim payment. Things still not quite sorted out there in the department at the moment.
No, and I really don't think politically the minister had any choice but to come forward with an interim payment, Charles, because as you and I both know, farm organisations and farmers alike are so frustrated out there about these delays. Obviously, the minister made the decision to allow all 46,000 applicants in for Tranche 1 of Acres. And I suppose the knock-on effect of that is all of those applications take a lot of time to process by the department, but I think farmers out there probably feel if you couldn't take us all on, don't do that and then delay our payments for all of this period of time. And obviously, the department, we're not saying the department aren't working very hard on this, Charles, and I'm sure that they are. But, it seems to have been an issue across the schemes. We see issues in TAMS as well. BIS and CRIS payments still rolling out as well, on the back of the new cap and all of the new schemes that were introduced. And we have heard from the department that there has been IT issues and, different delays that way. But very, very frustrating for farmers on the ground out there.
Aisling, another potential headache for the government and Minister McConalogue specifically is that the Irish Farmers Association has now said that it's going to enter what it calls the next phase of its campaign to highlight a range of issues that its members and farmers generally are facing, and farm payments would be just one of those. What are the latest developments on that front, Aisling?
Yeah, so at the start of the month, we reported here on the pod about the National Show of Solidarity with European Farmers that was organised by the IFA. So this week, there was a meeting of IFA National Council during which the IFA President, Francie Gorman, announced the next phase of their Enough is Enough campaign. Have a listen to this.
Hi all, we just finished up a meeting with National Council in Dublin where I updated members on our meeting with the Minister for Agriculture last Wednesday night, following which he agreed to make an interim payment to all farmer participants in acres. This goes some way to sorting out the payments mess created by his department. However, there's no doubt that there's huge frustration with farmers on the ground about the way they've been treated by the political system. And we've decided that for the next phase of our campaign, we're going to target county council meetings around the country. And the message to our politicians is that enough is enough.
So that's IFA President Francie Gorman there, Charles, explaining, I suppose, that he had met with Minister Charlie McConalogue about the delay in the acres payment and welcomed the fact that the interim payment was being brought forward, but still said, obviously, that there's huge levels of frustration out there. So the next phase of the campaign kicked off on Wednesday afternoon in County Longford, where the County Council was holding a scheduled meeting, and a group of farmers gathered in their tractors outside a local school before driving to the council chambers to engage with the county councillors and deliver what they said was a clear message on key farming issues. Now, I spoke with IFA Chair in Longford, John Sheridan, and he said that farmers are really annoyed about delays to scheme payments, including acres. And he said that farmers are also unhappy about being constantly blamed for climate change by what he called the Dublin media. And he said that the European Union must provide additional money for environmental actions carried out by farmers, which is separate from CAP funding. Now, he was allocated 15 minutes to address the councillors, during which he read from an IFA campaign document. And he said that the EU, the Irish government and local government are all devising policies far from the farm gate with little or no consideration of the direct impact on farmers. And he said that farmers are becoming increasingly frustrated by overcomplicated schemes which have contributed to widespread delays in payments. And he said there's been a complete systems failure when it comes to TAMS. In terms of local government issues, Sheridan pointed to delays in planning hindering on-farm investments, the implementation of the controversial residential zoned land tax, the RZLT, and the need for a clear protocol for increased local authority farm inspections. Now, in closing, the Longford IFA chair appealed to the councillors present to highlight the issues that he had raised and to seek a fundamental reset of how farm policy is devised and implemented, both at EU level and at national level. And the councillors were asked to approve a resolution which involved writing to the President of the European Commission, that's Ursula von der Leyen, Taoiseach Leo Varadkar and Minister Charlie McConalogue, stating that the local authority approved the IFA's Enough is Enough campaign. And they were asked to state that they recognise the significant contribution of the farming sector to the Irish economy and to acknowledge the income challenges facing farmers currently. And the councillors were also requested to call on the government to introduce no further regulation on farmers, Charles, or any measures that may increase costs on farmers without full negotiation and agreement with the IFA. Very, very interesting. And I've been told by the IFA chair in Longford that the local councillors have assured him that the resolution will be discussed at the next meeting of the local authority. And we have got word as well that the second demonstration as part of the next phase of this Enough is Enough campaign will take place on Friday night with a tractorcade driving through Waterford City. And that protest is being organised by Waterford, Kilkenny and Wexford IFA, and it will focus on the lack of a tillage incentive scheme and abolishing the 3-crop rule.
And Aisling, I suppose we can't forget that in June of this year we have local council and European Parliament elections as well. So I suppose the IFA's stance here of going to county councils, I suppose it's not random. And could we see this as the IFA almost putting these councillors on notice, as it were?
Yeah, putting them on notice, but also, Charles, I suppose, maybe informing them of what's going on in the ground. Perhaps some councillors might be from an urban background and they may not be au fait with what is actually happening inside the farm gate. So I suppose the IFA is using this opportunity, and if they get the audience that they secured in Longford, it's a very powerful platform to, have the ear of all of the county councillors at once. And I'm not sure if the document that was read out to Longford County Council will be repeated elsewhere. But, it is asking for a resolution from councillors to back this campaign. And by all accounts, it seems that it was positively received by Longford County Council. We'll have to wait and see if the resolution is passed as it currently stands. But I think, the IFA stepping up this protest from just being tractors gathering in towns and on motorway flyovers to now focusing on the politicians. And politicians want to get re-elected, Charles, in June. So they may well listen.
And Aisling, staying on politics, but just moving to a slightly different issue, there was another significant development this week, which also reflects the mood of frustration towards the government when it comes to farming and rural affairs. And that is that Roscommon Galway TD Michael Fitzmaurice, who has made a name for himself in the Dáil for focusing on rural affairs and farmers' issues, he has decided to join a new political party that was established by his fellow independent TDs Richard O'Donoghue and Michael Collins. Why has Fitzmaurice made this move, Aisling?
Yeah, so I think it's fair to say that the politicians out there, they're keenly aware of the demand from farmers and from people living in rural Ireland for their concerns to be better heard at local and national and European level. And we saw the success, last year of the Farmers' Party, the BBB in the Netherlands, and that hasn't gone unnoticed here at home as well. So as you said, Michael Fitzmaurice, he's been considering his options in regard to this over the past year, whether he'd set up on his own or maybe join somebody else. And this week, as he said, he confirmed that he is joining Independent Ireland. Now, that party was established by Michael Collins, who's based in Cork, and Richard O'Donoghue, who's based in Limerick, late last year. And it has the aim of to respect the work and changes farmers are making. So following the announcement, Agriland editor Stella Meehan travelled to Roscommon this week for a sit-down interview with Michael Fitzmaurice to discuss why the TD has made this decision. And he said that he believes people living in rural Ireland are being impacted by government decisions and they feel that they don't have anybody to vote for at the moment. And he admitted that joining this new political party may be a risk, Charles. It is a risk, and it's, linking up with maybe other TDs, whereas before he used to plough his own furrow, so to speak. But he said that they will be giving people that opportunity to decide what they want to do when the election is called. Now, Deputy Fitzmaurice said, as a country, Ireland has lost the run of itself on the climate and agricultural debate. And he said that this new party pledged to freeze and reform the carbon tax if they're successful in getting elected. Now, the deputy said that when looking at carbon sequestration, the level of hedgerows planted and trees on farms have not been taken into consideration, and that a full review of environmental targets needs to happen. And he also pointed to food security. He said that's an important concern. And he said that countries such as Canada are actually looking on at Europe and what's going on here at the moment. And they're actually maybe trying to up their production to take advantage of that and to then, I suppose, export food across to the EU. And Deputy Fitzmaurice questioned the sustainability and the environmental credentials of something like that happening as well. And on the makeup of the next government, Charles, it was very interesting because Stella did ask Deputy Fitzmaurice, about the next government. And he felt that it would be made up of, I suppose, a three-legged stool, essentially, the way we see at the moment. We've Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and the Green Party. And he said that he would see something similar occurring after the next election. So I suppose if they were lucky enough to get the numbers, Independent Ireland, Deputy Fitzmaurice said that they would be willing to talk to anybody when it comes to going into government and sharing power. Have a listen to this.
We should, and every party should, always sit down with whoever wants to sit down with them. You should never be afraid to sit down with someone. Policy is what's important. What you're in your document in getting it into a programme for government is what's important. That's the be-all and the end-all of everyone. And someone asked me the other day, would you sit down with the Greens, Michael Fitzmaurice, even though they would be totally different? I always sit down with everybody. And we would always sit down with everybody. But I couldn't imagine that in a programme for government we would agree, Anton, if it was the likes of the Greens. But you have to show respect to democratically elected people, no matter what party they're from, to sit down with them at least. There's no such thing as saying that you're going and you'll end up agreeing something. But you have always got to make sure that you show respect to any other party, in my opinion.
So there you go, Charles. Even the Green Party, Michael Fitzmaurice is willing to sit down with. Now, he did admit they might not have much in common, but he said that he will respect any other political party out there, and we'll have to wait and see. But look, I mean, I don't know. I think you would agree, Charles, that there seems to be a real appetite out there in rural Ireland. We've seen the Farmers Alliance coming and going. We know there's some chopping and changing going on there at the moment as well. But there does seem to be an appetite out there, I think you'd agree, for a party like this.
Yeah, absolutely, Aisling. I mean, the coalition there at the moment, Green Party, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, there's plenty of rural TDs there, plenty of rural senators there, and many of them are very good people and very good public representatives. But there perhaps just seems to be something missing there in terms of almost like a missing link between the farmer on the ground and policymakers. So if Michael Fitzmaurice or any political party can kind of fill that gap, I suppose it's something to be welcomed, and obviously we'll wait to see what they make of it. Now, staying with rural issues, Aisling, there was a very sad, upsetting and I suppose angering story this week that emerged, but unfortunately not a very unfamiliar one.
Yeah, definitely. A truly shocking incident this week in Mayo, Charles. It was an aggravated burglary that happened in a rural part of Mayo on Monday evening. And Gardaí said that sometime between 7 and 7:30 that night, two people entered the property in Killesser in Swinford, armed with what is understood to be a knife. Now, the suspected offenders threatened the homeowner, who is a farmer in his 70s, who was in the house at the time, although it is thankfully understood that he wasn't injured during the course of the incident, but I'm sure he was understandably shaken by this happening to him. Now, a number of items were stolen from the house, including cash and a Toyota Land Cruiser Jeep as well. And the suspects fled the scene in that Jeep, and it was later recovered on Tuesday evening in Sligo. So an incident room has been established in Ballina Garda Station, and Gardaí are appealing to anybody who might have information in relation to the incident to come forward, especially anybody who may have observed a 2004 Toyota Land Cruiser travelling in the area and up towards Sligo as well. So Gardaí have said that the house in question, it's actually near enough to a very busy road, the N5, and a spokesperson for the Garda station in Ballina called the burglary very unusual and very brazen. The local Fianna Fáil councillor John Caulfield described the incident as very regrettable for a man living on his own. He said they hadn't had anything like that in a good while. He said it's frightening, and it's frightening for older people, and that they should not have to live in fear in their own homes. And he felt that the incident would have a ripple effect on other people, especially older people. And he advised locals to keep an eye out for vulnerable people in the area and to be conscious of what's around them. Now, he also noted that the Jeep, it wasn't stolen to be reused or dismantled for parts, but it was stolen as a getaway vehicle and obviously was later abandoned. And he said that he believed that Gardaí would leave no stone unturned when it came to this investigation. Now, Fine Gael councillor in the area, Patsy O'Brien, said that following the burglary, they should bring back the local Garda station and local Gardaí into communities. He said it's important that there was a greater presence of Gardaí. And if the truth was told, they don't have enough of them, is what he had to say. And the county chair for the IFA in Mayo, Jarlath Walsh, said he would also like to see more of a Garda presence in rural areas. And he said that a reduction of Gardaí in these areas was actually leaving elderly farmers living on their own exposed. And he said there had been too much of a withdrawal of services from rural Ireland. And he offered his sympathies to the man involved in this incident, the victim, a man in his 70s living alone, Charles. A really deplorable incident for somebody of that age to have to go through, like anybody of any age to go through, to be threatened with a knife and to be robbed. And look, I suppose we'd appeal for anybody in Mayo or in Sligo who might have any information to contact Ballina Garda Station and to help Gardaí to get to the bottom of this and bring these perpetrators to justice.
Absolutely, Aisling. And, you know, the calls for, I suppose, a greater Garda presence in rural areas, we've heard them before, and, you know, I suppose in a way it's a pity that it has to be said at all, but it appears that it does have to be said. But I think I can speak on behalf of everyone at Agriland when I say that the victim of this crime, he's very much in our thoughts as he comes to terms and deals with what was obviously a very traumatic experience. Aisling, it's that time of the month now where dairy processors begin announcing their prices for the previous month's supplies. And of course, it's a new year, peak milk supply season will soon be upon us. But so far this week, Aisling, how are things panning out for January milk prices?
Yeah, obviously very early in the year, but as calves are arriving on farm, I think it'll come as some solace for dairy farmers that we are seeing milk prices going in the right direction. On Tuesday, we got the first milk price for January. Lakeland dairies first out of the traps as normal. A base price of 38.9 cent per litre is what they announced in the Republic of Ireland. That base price is increased by 1.75 cents a litre since the previous month, including the new 0.5 cent a litre sustainability incentive payment. And the cooperative said that all suppliers will automatically receive a 1 cent a litre early calving bonus and are also receiving an unconditional 1 cent a litre input support payment to assist farmers with costs during a challenging winter period. This brings the January milk price up to 40.9 cent a litre, with those two bonus payments included. And qualifying farmers will also receive a 5 cent a litre out of season payment as well. In the north, suppliers for Lakeland will get a base price of 31.75 pence per litre. That base price is increased by 1.5 pence per litre since December. Now, Lakeland Dairy said that the outlook for the global dairy markets remains tentatively positive after a period of uncertainty at the start of the year, with buyers at this time taking a reserved position, but global milk supply remains muted. So we also got a word today from Dairygold. They became the second processor to announce their January milk price. They confirmed that they will increase their quoted milk price by 1 cent a litre to 38 cent a litre for January milk based on standard constituents and inclusive of sustainability and quality bonuses and VAT. In addition, Dairygold said that the January early calving bonus of 3.14 cent a litre, including VAT, will be paid on milk supplied in January in accordance with milk quality criteria. And the processor said that this will increase the attainable milk price in Dairygold to 41.14 cent a litre at standard constituents. And they also gave us an update on the global outlook. A spokesperson for the processors saying that dairy market prices have improved in recent months, reflecting a decrease in global milk supplies, as alluded to by Lakeland as well. But with demand continuing to be volatile, future pricing forecasts remain uncertain. And they said that they will continue to monitor markets closely and review milk price on a month-by-month basis. So look, not massive increases, but increases all the same, Charles, and I'm sure dairy farmers will take them and run.
Yeah, I've no doubt, Aisling, because, you know, it was difficult there. For periods of the last couple of years, prices saw kind of record highs, but then kind of fell relatively quickly after that. So I suppose any increase is an increase at the end of the day. But that, unfortunately, brings us to the end of this week's show. Please don't forget to rate, review and follow The Farming Week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love if you could spare some time to give us 5 stars or share The Farming Week with anyone you think might be interested. From Aisling and myself, all the best for the weekend.